I'm the storyteller, and my stories must be told. I have many stories, tales for both the young and old. I have many voices to describe many places. Many names have I, and many faces. In Russia I am Ivan, in Sweden I am Jan. In Germany I'm Johann, in America I'm John. From my many travels I have gathered these tales to teach you good sense when all else fails. Sometimes there are tears, sometimes there is laughter, but always are happily ever after.
Long ago and far away in a green valley among high mountains, there lived a prosperous farmer. He had lots of animals on the farm, including a fine herd of cows of which he was very proud. He lived in the large farmhouse with his 3 daughters. He was a hard-working man, but he had a fiery temper because he had no son to help him with the heavy work and had to do everything himself. His eldest daughter, Kate, was such a proud and snooty young lady, she didn't like to get dirty. His second daughter, Hannah, was no help either, for she was terribly lazy and slept all day. The only thing she woke for was food. Ursula, the youngest daughter, was a very good cook. Poor Ursula. Her father and sisters were not very kind to her. They thought she was simple in the head just because she always did what she was told with a smile. Ursula was such a good-natured girl. She cooked, scrubbed and sewed for them all quite happily and never complained. Each year, when summer came to the mountains, the farmer would send his herd of cattle up to the summer pastures, where the grass was fresh and sweet. The cows were tended by a young milkmaid who also slept in the dairy. Each evening, she would bring the cows in from the fields and milk them. And with the milk, she made butter and cheese. One morning, when the family were just beginning their breakfast, who should come racing through the farmyard but the milkmaid? She was so upset she ran into the house without even knocking. The farmer was most surprised to see her. "Why are you here?" he asked crossly. "Why have you left the cows?" "Oh, master," cried the milkmaid, "I'm so frightened. The cows have disappeared. The pastures are haunted." The farmer was furious. "What nonsense! You stupid girl! All the cows have bells. Go and listen." "They have disappeared, I tell you. I won't go back. I won't," she cried. And with that, the frightened milkmaid ran out of the house. The farmer hurried after her. How dare the silly girl run away? Now who was going to tend the cows? He'd have to send Kate. He called for his eldest daughter. Kate had been combing her hair, but she came when her father called. "Go up to the summer pastures," said the farmer, "and find the cows. That stupid girl says they've disappeared." Kate didn't have the slightest wish to walk all the way up to the smelly old pastures, but she feared her father's temper and dare not say no. So she went down to the kitchen and gathered up some food for her lunch. She felt very grumpy. She did hate walking. She had just put on a new pair of white stockings that morning, and now they would get all dirty. All she wanted to do was sit at home and put new trimmings on her dress. But she dare not cross her father, for his temper was terrible when aroused. One thing was quite sure. If she didn't find those stupid cows, she was coming straight home. Kate left the house with her lunch tucked safely in a basket and set off up the road that led to the high pastures. Really, she did hate having to walk. Now, Kate was so snooty that she walked proudly with her nose stuck high in the air, and because she wasn't looking where she was going, she kept tripping over stones in the road. This made her even crosser. By the time she had arrived at the dairy, she was in an awful mood. Where were those cows? They certainly weren't in the stalls. As Kate looked round, she felt a little shiver go down her spine. The silence made her nervous. The sooner she found the cows, the better. Perhaps they had wandered away. She could hear no sound of their cowbells. But she found some tracks in the grass, so she decided to follow them. Suddenly, she heard faint tinkling, or was it a cry? It was coming from the wood. Away hurried Kate down the path through the trees. She'd soon have those cows back in the dairy. But as she went deeper into the wood, she saw that the path narrowed, and below it was a steep drop. And as Kate looked down over the edge, what should she see but an ugly old man clinging desperately to a small tree. "Help!" he cried. "Please help me up! I'm weak and old." Kate looked down at the old man and thought, "I'll get my stockings dirty if I climb down there." And she turned away, pretending she hadn't seen him, and hurried back towards the dairy. Then something extraordinary happened. She disappeared. The next day, the farmer was rather surprised when Kate had not returned home. She hadn't taken much food with her. Perhaps she had felt tired and decided to sleep in the dairy for the night. Every so often he would glance up the road, but there was no sign of her. The morning passed, and still Kate did not appear. The farmer was sure his daughter was all right, but he was worried about his cows. What happened if she hadn't found them, and they were wandering around on the mountain? They might stray too close to the edge and fall into a ravine. So at midday, the farmer decided to send Hannah up to the high pastures to see what had happened. But Hannah wasn't in the house. She was having a quiet nap in the hay after rather a large breakfast. Her father was furious when he saw her, the lazy, good-for-nothing girl. Oh, how he wished he had a son instead of 3 stupid daughters. "Wake up, you lazy wretch!" shouted the farmer. "Go and find your sister and those cows." Hannah was very sleepy and really had no wish to go walking anywhere, but she knew her father would beat her if she didn't. Hannah decided that if she was going to walk, she would need to take a very big lunch with her, just to keep her going, for if she didn't have enough to eat, she might grow faint and ill. She helped herself to generous portions of meat, bread, and eggs. And then, because she wanted to be sure she had enough, she helped herself to more bread. Then she picked up the heavy tablecloth and left the house. She wondered what had happened to her sister Kate, why she hadn't come home. She had probably never walked up to the high pastures at all, but gone into town instead. Hannah plodded lazily up the mountain road. She was feeling hungry, so she munched away at an apple as she went. She was rather sleepy already, for the day was warm and sunny, and the air smelt so sweet it made her feel very drowsy. I think I'll just have a quick rest, thought Hannah, for the soft grass looked so inviting. She would feel refreshed after her sleep and be able to walk much faster. So Hannah settled down and had a wonderful sleep right there by the side of the road. When Hannah arrived at the dairy, there was no sign of Kate or the cows. Though she called and called, she received no answer. The dairy was empty. Where could they be? Hannah felt rather nervous. She didn't like it up here alone. She found the tracks in the grass and she decided to follow them. Suddenly, the tracks stopped. Now where should she look? Then she heard a faint tinkling. Or was it a cry? She had better go and see. Hannah dare not return home yet, for her father would be furious if she did not find the cows. What was that noise? It sounded like crying. She looked down over the edge of the path and saw there beneath her the ugly old man crying out that he was stuck. "Please help," he cried. Now, Hannah didn't mind getting her feet dirty, but she was much too lazy to climb down the bank and pull the old man up. She'd go back and have a sleep in the dairy. But she never went anywhere. She just vanished. The farmer was very worried now. What were his daughters up to? Neither had returned from the high pastures. If they had found the cows, they would surely have come straight home. In came Ursula with his breakfast. She too was worried. "Father, please let me go up to the pastures and search for them," she pleaded. "I fear something dreadful must have happened to my sisters." But the farmer shook his head. "Don't be stupid, child. You are so simple, if you go up there, you are bound to fall off the mountain." But he was still worried about his cows, and he had to go to market, so he could not search for them. Ursula pleaded so hard that in the end the farmer agreed. But he told her she mustn't linger on the way. She must find her sisters and the cows and then come straight home. Ursula was very pleased that she now had the chance to help. She prepared a simple meal to take with her on her journey. Ursula said goodbye to her father and hurried away out of the house. She walked with a light step and a happy smile up the mountain road. When she arrived at the dairy, she felt sure she would find her sisters there, safe and well, and the cows out in the field. But the dairy was empty. "Hello," she cried. "Kate! Hannah!" But her voice just echoed round the walls. Everywhere was quiet and still. Even the birds were silent. But Ursula was not defeated. She found the tracks in the grass and followed them along the field. When they stopped suddenly, she wondered where to look. Then she heard a faint tinkling sound. Ursula did not hesitate for a second and ran quickly down the path through the wood. She did not stop until she too came to the steep ledge and heard an anguished cry. She looked down and saw the poor old man in great distress. "Oh dear," cried Ursula. "Please help me," pleaded the old man. Ursula immediately ran down the steep, slippery slope without a thought for her own safety and soon reached him. "Hold on to my hand," she said gently, and she pulled him back towards the path. The slope was very, very steep and the old man very weak, and Ursula had to struggle hard. Just then the sky darkened, the wind began to blow, and Ursula knew there was going to be a summer storm. "Hurry," she cried. "We must hurry." The old man suddenly pulled her down the path as the first raindrops began to fall. "There's a hut here where we can shelter," gasped the old man. Ursula agreed, for in this rain the old man would soon catch cold. So as the thunder boomed and the rain fell in great bucketfuls, Ursula and the old man came at last to the hut. She pushed the old man inside with the last of her strength. They were both very wet and cold, and the old man's teeth were chattering loudly. He looked so old and frail she must keep him warm, for who knew how long this storm might last? The thunder grew louder, and great streaks of lightning flashed across the sky. Ursula found a piece of old sacking and put it round his shoulders. And because she was sure the old man must be hungry, she gave him her bread and cheese, which he gobbled up hungrily. She could not help wondering what the old man was doing up here on the mountain. Didn't he have any family? She would have liked to have asked him if he had seen her sisters or the cows, but he looked so tired. She went over to the window to see if the storm had passed, but it was still raining heavily. Her father was sure to think that she had fallen off the mountain and would be furious when she didn't return home, but she could not leave the poor old man alone. He looked half-starved, as though he hadn't eaten for days. "Why don't you rest a while?" Ursula said kindly. "You must be very tired." And she gently helped the old man to lie down. "There now, try and sleep," she smiled. Then suddenly there came a clap of thunder, much louder than all the others. Ursula fell to the floor, senseless. It was some time before she opened her eyes, and when she did, she thought she must still be dreaming. She was lying on a fine bed in a beautiful room. Suddenly a maid appeared from nowhere. She asked Ursula if she would like to bathe. Ursula stared at the maid. Where did she come from? The maid just smiled mysteriously. Just as Ursula felt sure it was all a dream, another maid appeared carrying the most beautiful dress Ursula had ever seen. It was spun with gold and fit for a queen. Was it really for her? There must be some mistake. She was only a farmer's daughter. Ursula tried the dress against her, and it fitted perfectly, as though it had been made for her. She remembered the old man, the storm, and sheltering in the hut. But where was she now? Though she asked the maids, they would say nothing. Ursula had a bath and put on the fine gold dress. She looked so elegant, she could not believe her reflection in the mirror. The maids dressed her hair for her, and Ursula was just beginning to believe she would never find the answers to her questions when the door swung open. And who should appear but a handsome young man? "Good day, Ursula," he said with a smile. "I hope you slept well." And he strode over to where Ursula sat, much perplexed. Who was he? "I have to thank you for releasing me from an evil spell. I am a prince who a witch turned into an ugly old man. Only someone who showed they cared for me, as you did, had the power to release me." Ursula stared. Was this the old man she had rescued? "Yes," laughed the prince, reading her thoughts. "I am he. And that old hut was my castle. Your sisters were much too selfish to help me, so I made them disappear. but I will release them now. I think they have learned their lesson. Dearest Ursula, I hope you will consent to be my bride, for I will have no other. The prince was true to his word, and who should appear in the dairy but Kate and Hannah and the cows? The sisters were most surprised to find themselves there. What had happened? Then they remembered the old man and felt most ashamed. But there was no time to waste now, for the cows were mooing loudly. They wanted to be milked, and there was butter and cheese to be made. So the two sisters set busily to work, and they did not stop until all the cows were milked and all the butter and cheese was made. They had never worked so hard in all their lives. There was no Ursula now to do it for them, and their father would be furious if he discovered that they had been sleeping instead of tending the cows. When at last the two sisters had finished, they hurried away down the mountain road and back to the farmhouse. Their father came out to greet them. He was very happy they were back, for he feared he had lost his whole family besides his herd of cows. Kate and Hannah were in a state of high excitement. They had some special news for their father. Not only were the cows safe and sound, but something extraordinary had happened. They had met a peasant on the way home who told them that their sister Ursula was going to marry a prince. The farmer was speechless. Ursula, a princess. So Ursula and her prince married and lived happily on together at the castle. Ursula kept an eye on her father's cows and made sure they never disappeared again.